Higgs boson ga chaias so Higgs boson. Esh was a co. Kakech. Ya yehoji. Kakech.
Yeah, I want.
Kakech. Google in. Google. Kakech yadi. Ayahwe. As gut as Yujich. That's a era Higgs boson klesh ye daika. Ach tu sigu kuklakek city. Kuklakek yadi. Oh, kuchawe.
Yak echa we gonna cheese.
Geez.
Kadeen kaishikit.
Geez.
Yeah, awa chosaku ya that kasasai kusti ladybug. Yeah, kuch kuskek aya adat yutuch the tan kakatlich katlich achchi. Yeah, awa katlich achch akayeti spots. Goodness, cheese. What do you say?
Gosgat. This Skalsnik Jinkrat sentences wish Skalsnik dach der 1000 ka dachun achunikachat Krut Khanaha Kwan Utusitin Dempster Highway Kanach Huni Kunach Accomplihate At Tlakmasawuti Gusuwe
At the geek katai yina.
Yata Yisitingi Yisitin okay yahaayí
Take it away.
Kutanaha Kwan Wusitin Dempster Highway Kanach Ach Tuasagut Ye Khatati Khatlitinet Ach Shantunach Hastu Inu Khatliat Yedach Yarsika Yeke Yeksatini Adach ko Ach Yakawugi Aklihe Atchewet Slufat Hunt Ye Adik. Darius accompli hate creeped out you Uwasa. Kadu Tuwasagu Wedeka Clark Utukuhu. Krut anaha kwanka kushatki picture show kade dat you to your tongue. Montras jinkat winnets with tin aga gune with to a kuch. Darius ye kakwawus dasawe a akliate ye yawakadu to wasigudu yat kitsuhas awustini. Tleth to Hunuk. Chada kwasa katushxeedi at hastu jidak yanekiki. You yaksaka chudak na kuhan yake ku ye hayati. Kaye yaksaka kutkanaha dak you was hiki agadati an kawu du yit kuwasti yakiti. Du in you kakwani chat the cut truck to shook at kliye dakwiti with sutadi dat. Akhirkawa Yesikugi krut an hakwan picture show we kahasu wa shadi masa we truck kliye has auch. Deya kliye hawuti katushxeedi Kayadak kunasin, mankras yadak kunagain, adak ko a true, excuse me, adak ko a trudak kunatli ha khandach, de awe, ke she ach eat would she yashkelsnik kach zu.
Okay. In case you Khasaku masa yulitisha ekhunika goyahun. Okay. Basri. Sha age yech mashed potatoes team. Sha kleinoa yet yech. Would do a good kunstin. Okay, good cheese. Took a Johan. Konachwe keish kalni.
Acha,
Ah.
Tlashkat,
Cuisine. Aqawa. Okay. Tadaqasa.
Hold on, sorry. But I got to get to the top of my thing is, sorry. Okay. Anganins lidzi akaji wukuch chukle ya nadasha hini. Agashe kleki ji kwachini ach klagi klagi. Hadla, yes, math, aqua. Dach sa ach utne us kedain ach us a ua a. Yes, kuklage shu akaya akya. Kleid kuach Hune yadake ke kidati katushxeedi klek I ada wa atu. Yi shigun tat akhwajak. Utwe. Yi shagun tat akhwajak. I wasn't sure because I couldn't find anything about you know, like it was hard to find something about falling asleep.
Schoon
Oh,
touch
skuni. Oh, okay.
khat ujak. Okay, konach kegel cheese.
Kusin. Yake. Hune. Katin. I knew it.
Yeah,
Yes, the clue.
With the Under Armour symbol.
yeah, away. Chakutach akit kachwaak. Wan kanin slidzi. Zait ayak kende chwagudi. Ha, slidzi ayak wasai. Tlell kadeen ayak at the seq. At hunach at joyata chwau. Ka tellach tuashku. Yata oe yachwadlak. Yaach. A shit chizik ko ausatin. Under Armour. You gonna work out? Yeah, oe konach oe chat auslech oe. Aka oe atshuk oe konach oe. Okay. Gonna cheese, konach okay.
That's eat kuha.
Yeah, way.
Slash yahaayí achjiwa. Qua. Kakwawus. Itua. Picture what I ask you to see. Kakachkuk. Ikh has team. Teach playing cuck. Surfing down it. Kushta. Iyak. All around him are otters playing in the ocean. Akshkasnigi. Yidusak. Kushtaka ku'u. Do you want me to share screen? I better do that. Hang on, I'll be right back.
Okay.
My wife told me how to do this, so I should be able to do it.
Igor Yahuan.
Kushtaka ku'u. I'm going to read the English without looking at the Tlingit. Yukatangi. H Yahyati. Ash Katushxeedi. H Aka. Ha tit taik. A katushxeedi. Ha shagun. Tit plank yek yeti. Tit as kasigu away. Ha tu asigu. Eight. Ha itinakyati. A khaa kuu. Tit plank kach. A khaa kuu. Tit kach. Kwa. Tit plank. Batisichan. Jinastani. Kwaksoe. Shagun. Kalneek. Eight. Sligay. Si ati hin. With a truck. Sitsin. Way. Ash. Kursyarik ak. Eight akaf. Kushteka. Kuu. Yahaayí.
Ah. Yek way. Goodness cheese.
Goodness cheese.
Gunas
Goodness
cheese
cheese.
a kate isa achi. Put.
Okay. Okay.
Goodness cheese.
Yeah, away itina higher tea with eight.
Okay. Ade ua good. Shawalik kak. Yeah. Boom. Nest cook nagu. Sudu kusitan. Our geet. Kanasak gash. Our sitin. Ya naskain. Achuk. Dasa eating. Kalachak. Yedusak. Shak gish. Shak gishu. Yedusak. Wait. So on my whiteboard, I think I have a hedgehog.
Oh, okay. Kasatin.
Grass City.
Okay. Kasakach. Oh, yeah.
Kasakachk.
Ah. Gynnwys cheese, rwy'n ia. Dyn sgai lid Lingi yw hon, gynnwys cheese.
So just take a get the yahaayí katushxeedi. Yahaayí that you in katushxeedi. Now you katushxeedi. Nila tora do that iya. Buaya sorry. Katubaba you katushxeedi. Just take a yahaayí katushxeedi.
Okay. Gynnwys cheese. Gyda'n ceisio hydwyd at i. Okay. Gynnwys cheese, ie ge yw hon. Chynach ie ge. So gaga. Take a gyd so. Ya hawak siya ge i gachtu sa ni ya haye jini. Ada sa dada we. Wasach tu ye ge gyda'n cael a gwyllt y cyd yw hon. Well chatsu, well yak wadlach hechas agw. Ie awe ach tu was agw ya katushxeedi ya llingach kalneeki. Ka yukak watan a kanach. Ya achuni. Pat race you do a sock. Ha eat with the she at the teen. Ye awe katushxeedi. Just rough draft you do a sock. At the it late hawk enach. Chop the hair ach tu was agw and ya talk ash kalneeki katushxeedi. Ka yukak watan so. Chynachol dy cadie chai chwt y tŷ. Ias gallnig. Chwas y tîn. Ia nishka. Hasu a llechi. Hasu cocwag o wag. Hasu a llechi. Tag as gallnig chai chwystyn. Ag. A tlein siw cat chw has awas cw na ia ias gallnig.
Tlagwch oe. Dach ye hawtien. Katushxeedi oe hakusti yuch. Wegaw. Hell dach kusti oe. Sina. Katushxeedi. Wasakusi ad. Naskinach kag oe. Woosh tak ian hasati. Chynach has a shaguk alun kasteich. Kech a kutan. Hell has du gide dach uch ach wechad. Hell da satsu has a yawudlach has aluni. Ka kat uagut slag. Ishan den kakawa shu wegaw. Wasallidzi. Achu has kusacha. Kusacha kwan kudzati wegaw. Winaskinach kag. A hunchu yes yaw saka awe du kik has. As eat de kukwagut. Katuchayet. Kunyak isak shwe uwache. Kell kuch with the good. A iti with dach a kudzati ka. Ye a yosaka awe du kik. Du ika kukwa good. Hutsu. Kunyak isa. Kell kuwasti in yuch. Hutsu. Hell kuch with the good. Du shantu deu du zane. Hast du iti na khateti? Wasa hananin. Wasa hakakwati. Du tuwank hast du ika kushi. Du ish khatu tlako a. Ach has kutlagek an dachwugudi. Qasanech yedechusati. Hast du tawu a kawawat. Qataswugudi yech. An القنش تيشتين تلاقيكي هسغانا ووستش هسي إيقا قنقشيت
Yawa. Talgan mo neto. Wel takatskasni kahtuasaku. Aqaq kak ko aqaya kedin kak ko shahid. Hechwasaku ko ade katushxeedi we graphic novel yeti. Da aqwa khosaku we atnane hasak shakuk. Hastu tuasaku kedin hasak kau shahidi. Ye khatsuach tuasaku. Aqa kwallayech we kuk ka kuyaw yahaayí. Ye awa achtu ye yeti kwal at yahaayí tin ka kuyaw yahaayí tin. Kellatin echa oti gleit qaqinach. Ye awa gachtu satin wasa at kakwane. Aqa awe hatliqeyi ka hakuk ka hawaq. Wujin ye has chikwane yahaayú qatangida. Kelkegach lidi gwalgiwe at awe dasa wutu satin. Qone aya yantu saquin. Yewa achtun de taniwit ata. Den chiishcha.
Ystis ha un kalneek yash kalneek. Achtuasagu yananach achtati adat. Katushxeedi. Gwalliasan dik atgu.
Yak Tukakachto Takatuhan, ya hashkasnik kita. Gwallie we ye kakoti we semester shuwu ye jene. Shkasnik kukachtu sheyech. Kushdeach wasa kaishikit. We khas puu helwasa oti. Ka gwalkedein kakishikit guk. Chadasai tuwasaku. Khatro konachach tuwasaku we yukatangi dat ye jitunei. Ye hoji ko awan qanins. Washat yahaayí kaishikit tsu. Kleshtis yukatangi dat you took gitan. War qanins kleshkatain qajit ukitch. Achawe atatina khayati chakuta. Ye hoji. Kleshkatain qajit ukitch. Ye awach wa ach. Gwalweta yach keuchni. Wasa ituasaku ya that late kayu katangitin gwalwush. Yukagachtu laat. Wasa. Katawus kauga. The way I think of that phrase, one qanins kesh qajit ukitch. It hasn't been pried out of a person's hand yet. That's how she said something. I think she said that, and she said it gets a little awkward. It gets kind of stuck. So my thinking is we'll keep working on little drawings as well. They could be stick figures. They could be whatever you want. But my approach with this is that sometimes if you're just focused on the language, you get a little stuck. So maybe if you have to draw something too, it provides a nice distraction to maybe open up the language pathways. Because then in your brain, sometimes you get a little, or at least I do, I'll get stuck on one thing. I'm like, oh, if I just had that one thing, I could have done the whole story. But then if I could just sort of distract myself from that, then sometimes it'll flow around the rock. And
So
the-
how
It
did
must-
you draw
It must work
pictures?
the other part of your brain, the other side of your brain.
yeah, because you got an analytical side, creative side, probably multiple sides, but
Yeah.
but I do think by drawing, then you're also thinking about, and I think also like it helps us to convey the meaning quite a bit. And I've thought that for a long time. Like, boy, animated things would really work well in Tlingit because you wouldn't need the English because you got the visual component there.
You don't need the conjugation for the verbs. You just show it.
There you go.
Wasa katushxeedi yahaayí. How did you make the pictures that you drew?
Yeah, I drew them in a program called Clip. What's it called? Hold on. Clip Studio Paint. And it's not the easiest program to learn how to use, but there's lots of tutorials out there and there's a big community. The main users of it are people who make comic books and people who make animation. And it's very powerful in terms of the animation. Let me see if I can show you folks. Because what I've been learning from Pat Race, I hired him to do this workshop with a few of us. Let's see if I can go find it. Oh, here it is. I use it for making a lot of memes, but this is kind of what it looks like. So basically, you can sketch out these, you got a timeline down here, and then on the timeline, there's also, I know there's Tlingit on there too, so the Tlingit is going to be there, like eventually. And worked with this thing for quite a while. So here's like tagukoe dakakayehawutian. Anybody want to translate that line for us? Tagukoe dakakayehawutian.
Taguk lived in the interior?
Yeah, long time ago, we lived in the interior. And then, I don't know where my next, I guess, there's my next frame. Oh, I have to mess around. But anyways, yeah, so you get a time, it takes a bit to learn, and I haven't messed around with it in a while, but you could hit.
Tlagukoe dakakayehawutian. Katushxeedi awahaq.
So I haven't finished, but you could put everything into this one program. You could put, and then you could draw this, and this is like placeholder drawing. So basically, what I'll go through and like actually flush out the whole frame. So I'll draw the mountains, and you could paint them. It's got a whole bunch of different tools for sketching, drawing. You could do a whole bunch of layers on one particular thing, and it can still animate through the whole. It's pretty wild. It's really powerful. It's got a lot of. There's a lot that you can do, and then he had us just make like a little bouncing ball. And it took me so long at a bouncing ball or just like little bubbles and stuff. But it was pretty fun. It was really fun to do that. And so we could certainly do more kind of focused workshops like this too. Like maybe not in a class like this, but we could sort of come up with some projects where we all get together and just try and make some stuff. And maybe it is just and I think you can make some really amazing things. Even a short book that's just mostly just kind of stick figure drawings, but it's like a narrative that's self-contained and it has the visual elements. I think that's really neat. Then you could make full-on animation if you want. Like I don't know if I'd do frame by frame stuff. It might be just like here's a still, here's a still, here's a still. 'Cause I ain't got time to do the whole thing, but it'd be fun. It's a pretty powerful program. It's a little bit expensive. The biggest downside I saw is if you bought it on your desktop and you wanted to get it for your tablet because you have a pencil and you're going to draw on the tablet, you have to buy both versions, which is kind of a drag. But it's super powerful. You can do, and then laying in stuff like speech bubbles and then putting, it's a little bit technical. It's on the technical side, but you can install a bunch of really cool comic book fonts and do a bunch of stuff with it. So it's pretty fun.
How much is expensive?
Let me go look.
Could that be special intensive workshop, like over a long weekend or something?
I think it'd be really fun to do a few things like that, and then to do like a filmmaking workshop, or maybe we bring someone in who knows how to do this stuff. Like I think Pat Race is really great, and to just sort of show us how to do something. Like here's how you make a movie and put subtitles on it, and here's how you make a little comic, and here's how you make a animation, and then sometimes blending all of those things. I think the desktop version is $220. But it's a one-time thing, so you don't have to buy it. Like some of them have like a monthly subscription. I think the iPad one was probably, I'd have to take a look, but it might have been $80 or something like that. So it's not, it's expensive, but it's not too bad.
Thank you.
Cheat wool, shkashnik, aktuasigu, just plain Word doc away, ka drawing, gugek. That would be pretty easy.
That was my biggest problem, how to make a drawing. Like I just, I did have about 5 of them, but I just erased them because they were all worse than that one. So we'll go with one. Yeah.
I will help you draw. You help me sink it hinach. Ahuni Yeshtuchla is got some fabulous shkashnik with fairly simple drawings, but I think they're fabulous. It's harder to do a simple drawing, I think, than a fancy one. And
Okay. Any other thoughts or questions?
Oh, kusin. Yahaayí. How did you do that?
Kwashkiwe.
Tiagen.
Ekwati. Okay, so let's smash through some objects and subjects. You guys want to do that? Kind of revisit that stuff. I think the general plan will be to sort of, we'll always start with Tlingit. We'll come up with ideas on how to be in Tlingit for the first And it's pretty fun. We're in Tlingit for almost an hour, and we can communicate, and then we sort of come out and we reflect and talk about it. And then I think the second half of class can be a bit of a windshield wiper between just looking at some sentences and then sometimes looking at some structural things. So we did this, and we'll do a quick recap. It's been a couple of weeks maybe, so just sort of looking through. We're focused on the object right now. Khat, ha, yi, zero or ka or k, at, and sh. So, okay, geez. So then the hus also will, well, let me ask you this. Why is there an arrow from the hus to this section right here, and then another arrow going through? Look at that. Why is that green arrow on there?
Oh, third person, eh?
Yeah, so the hus, so you'll see first person singular, first person plural. Second person singular, second person plural. Third person. That's all there is. So there's no plural marker built into it. So hus can pluralize the third person object or the third person subject or both of them, right? You cannot tell. You cannot tell by just looking at the language itself. You got to take in the context and the other stuff. So when is the third person object zero and when is it
Is it something about if there's an object? Oh, if both the object and the subject are third person. You can put an I forget. It was in that book we read.
That's it. Third person subject and third person object. The object must be a. In all other cases, it will be totally unmarked. But you couldn't have two unmarked things, or you just couldn't tell that it was there. Okay. So let's go through. So here's our verb. Our verb is yahaayí. And so we're just going to go through. We did this one already, so we're going to go through kind of fast. Does someone tell me how to say, well, it's technically me good. But we'll say, I am good.
Okay.
Yahaayí. We are good.
Okay.
Yahaayí. You are good.
Okay.
Okay.
Yahaayí. Y'all are good.
Okay.
Yahaayí. They are good.
Okay.
Yahaayí. People are good, and I'll just remind you, you could say k, but we're going to say ka because there's a k weather one.
Kayake.
Yahaayí. Something is good.
Okay.
Yahaayí. They all are good.
Okay.
Hasyake. There they are, right? Chat, ha, yi, nothing. Ka, at, has, and nothing. Okay? Now we
That's what you're
did.
just showing us, right? The third person hus subject, and then it's closed a hus yake instead of like, because it's they all. Is that right?
Yeah, they all are good looking. So like them plural, right? It's a little awkward, but just trying to sort of see this as totally non-gendered so that we just remember it could be yake regardless of gender. And the third person, and we look at this O classifier, there's no subject, so it'll never, the object will not be marked for the third person. And so just sort of thinking of that transition, right? Me, us, you, y'all, people, something, them. Next one. So the verb is going to be yaksa'an. So these are both state verbs. These are both imperfective. These are imperfective state verbs. I am good looking.
Khat yaksa'an.
Khat yaksa'an. We are good looking.
yaksa'an.
Ayaksa'an. You are good looking.
Yaksa'an.
Yaksa'an. Y'all are good looking.
Yaksa'an.
Yaksa'an. They are good looking.
Yaksa'an.
Yaksa'an. People are good looking.
Yaksayan.
For this one, we're going to use kh because there's no weather. There's no good looking, handsome weather.
Oh.
Yaksa'an. So I think the general guideline here is it's kh unless there's a weather one, then it switches to kha. That just seems to be how it works. You can't say something's good looking. It's got to have a face. I guess it's, even if it was, well, this one, and it's not just a thing. It's like some unidentified type of thing or some sort of thing. Because if you had a statue, it would just be yaksa'an. They all are good looking.
As yaksa'an.
As yaksa'an. So how would this verb change if I were to say not good looking, but, well, not specifically not good looking. We're going to switch it to kind. What are the two things? Well, yeah, what's going to change?
The L classifier.
So yeah, the classifier is going to change to, so we'll just make a whole new slide right here. So we're going to change this to L classifier. What's the next thing that's got to change?
Yeah, changes to tu.
Yes, ya and ka. So this one has two thematic prefixes. You can have up to 3. So that'll change to tu. So now, is there a question?
Yeah. So you're changing it to kind. So why did kind change it from good looking? I guess I'm trying to.
So this verb root on has like 2 common verbs associated with it. And so if we change this classifier, we have a whole new verb. If we change this thematic prefix in any way, we have a whole new verb. Sometimes you'll change the transitivity and you'll have a whole new verb. So yaksa'an is face, surface, and then this on is like gentle or kind.
Got it. It was because it's the second of the verb root. Okay.
So
I just needed to know that part. Thanks. I forgot that.
Which is inside. So inside, gentle, kind, which the classifier switches to L. So now we get tusha'an. So verb predictors. We're going to change. Let me do the English real quick. Oh, good kind. I'm good kind. That's what happens when I try to talk and type at the same time. Okay. So, I am kind.
Katushxeedi.
Katushxeedi. Here comes the copy and paste.
Katushxeedi.
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 Katushxeedi. So by doing this stuff, we see we've got a fill in the blank type of thing. right? So we could take this pattern and we could just sort of go through, and we won't do it, but if we change this verb to chitzin, strong, chachitzin, hachitzin, ishitzin, oops, this needs to be connected, ishitzin, yishitzin, chitzin, tushitzin, hushitzin. Same pattern going all, so, you know, it's not the easiest thing, but it's a clear pattern to see, like you could change the objects, and it really does not change the verb that much, right? Like really just does it attach or not? There's some cases will affect it a little bit more, but for the most part, the subject affects it more because it's buried in the prefix. Thoughts or questions?
I
I
have one.
find this, oh,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Okay. You were talking about schlitzin. Is that only verb use for people? Can you say the ocean is powerful? And if so, how come in the verb dictionary there's no way to say schlitzin or it?
Well, yeah, so that's a good question.
Oh, there is.
The them is also the it. So the third person is also, it could be a non-human thing. So that it could be just like if, you know, so maybe like kind isn't the best one for it because it's gonna be a bit of a metaphor. But if you pick something like tall, shiyat, chatshiyat, hashiyat, ishiyat, yishiyat, shiyat. That could be a tree, a person, it could be a dog, right? And so the third person one for both the object and the subject could also be non-human things.
So how would you properly say the ocean is powerful?
I would probably say hini shitzin. That's one where I might put the hini on it to make sure people know it's not like some kind of strong sense. Because H could be ocean or salt.
I was wondering about on that look good one. So like, I've worked at a lot of different places and people, you know, working with people, and they're like, you know, they finish something, they're like, how's this look? And looks good, move on. Or thinking of like in hunting or war, like when people are scouting ahead and they're like, it looks good. You know, like you can use hand signals, but like just in general, looks good. I guess it's like an English way of thinking, but there's no real way to say that. Like if someone were to ask you in Tlingit, like how this Kate, you know, Kate, or like how would they say, does this look good?
So yeah, there's a couple. So like typically shakshaqi and yaksa'an are kind of gendered ways to talk about being good looking, right? And use them however you want, but my experience has been shakshaqi was usually female and yaksa'an was typically male. That's a common trait you have with Tlingit. But neither of those work well for non-human things. Like, so if it's a statue, sure. But if it's sort of, you have something like a bentwood box, and no matter how great it looks, it shouldn't really be yaksa'an or shakshaqi, because that's referring to a literal head. Shakshaqi is head beautiful, and yaksa'an is face gentle, right? So, but what you could do is you can say kashaqi. So kashaqi is it's beautiful. You could also say kadan. So kadan works as, it's not really a verb, it's an adjective. So you could say, oh, shash kadan. That's a beautiful spoon. So that's kashaqi as a verb, kadan as an adjective, or you could say qayati. So like if you're saying how do you think it looks to go up this path and go that way? Qayati. It looks pleasant. It looks satisfactory. So that's what qayati. And then you have the yati verb. So yati, wuti, kukwati. Right? Qakuqati or qakwati. It'll be good. It'll be pleasant. It'll be satisfactory. You could also say akhwaqayati. That's pleasing to my eyes. And that works as a flirty thing, or that also works as just sort of like someone shows you their artwork. You say akhwaqayati. It's satisfactory to my eyes. It's pleasing. But those are good questions because, yeah, same thing. The weather, the land, and same thing, you could say the ocean is powerful, but if you want to talk about, there's so many different ways to talk about it. If you're saying the waves are rough, then you'd say, yajiyanistan, and that's a different thing, because if you say like shetsinya ejhini, that's just saying the ocean is a strong thing. But if what you're communicating to me is like it's rough seas, yajiyanistan, I don't want to go out. It's too rough. Those are good questions. Any other thoughts or anything?
Anya Shahashka told me, Yagi Kadan, mighty fine day.
Yeah. It's like a U2 song, right? It's a beautiful day. Yaki done. Okay. Okay. So now let's look at one that has a subject. So there is a subject there. We're going to keep this subject third person. So here comes the lover of people coming in to love up everybody. So what we're going to start changing in this one is the object. And as we keep changing the object and subject, what we're going to do after these ones, like sikhan is a pretty straightforward verb to work with. And one of the reasons, because it's a state verb, so we can use it in the imperfective. Once you start throwing perfective markers in there and future markers in there, it gets a little more complicated. However, in the imperfective, you really just have object, subject, classifier, which is going to be si. Because here's the thing. Like we said, the only three verbs that can be imperfective are state, act, and position. A state and a position verb in the imperfective, they should be plus I. The act verb will be minus I. Okay? So we have the object and sikhan. That's what we should predict all the way down is sikhan. But now once we've added a subject, that's going to change two things on here that'll be a little bit different than the last one. What do you think is going to be a little bit different in terms of the pattern that we're trying to identify?
Would it just be khatsakan?
It would be. Let's just go through it. We'll find what the different thing is that I'm trying to point out here. Khatsakan. They love me. How about they love us? A singular there. Hasakan. They love you.
Yatsihan.
Yisakan. They love y'all.
Yisekhan.
Yisakan. They love them.
Asekhan.
Asakan. That's the thing that's different here. That third person now is going to trigger that It's going to switch over to Just got to keep that in mind. There's also a whole bunch of verbs that have a it attached to it. Tell it, cut it, the story of it, plant it. So you cannot forget that there's an it on there. It disappears all the time unless a third person is doing it. Then it has to pop up. A katushxeedi. They wrote it. Gosh, they're cutting it. A kalneek. They're telling it. Okay. They love people. Katushxeedi. They love something.
Atsihan.
Katushxeedi. They love them all.
Khasihan.
Hus. We gotta
Asikhan.
hus. So for this one, we're always going to look back to the third person and put a hus right in front of it. The rest will not change. Although the hus, it could be pluralizing the one who's loved, the one who's loving, or both. This could be a huge process. Okay, that's it for
Okay. I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I ask this every time, but here it goes again. Asikhan, kusikhan, atsikhan, those could all also mean he, she, or it loves them. Is that right?
Yes. Yes. So that could be a he, it could be a she, it could be the dog, right? It could be any of those things. It couldn't really be a like the cup. I don't want to get too philosophical, but this cup is not capable of loving me. It gives me the coffee and the water, but and so that's why the sechan verb also doesn't work very well to say like chasechan, yagucha chasechan. Like I don't really. You can like it, but you don't really love it. In Shingit. In English, love everything you want, but in Shingit, you.
Now, if you're going to be poetic, like in a story, could you say, Asikhan, it loves them like the ocean loves the people?
Yeah, because then you're sort of giving the ocean like the spirit of it thing. You could turn things into a living thing by using some of these things. So yeah, so you should know you're making a metaphorical connection with those things.
And would that also be like with like body parts? That's one of the things I struggled with on my comic thing was my brain wasn't working. Would that be this? I mean, like in that, is it the same thing as that they're still as if they were a something, or I mean like a them?
Oh, to kind of give it like a consciousness, like my hand
Yeah.
didn't want to do that, right? Like I think you could say "Achjin tesh atawa ushku yejiwuneyi." My hand didn't want to work. So, in that case you'd say "Achjin tesh atuwa ushku." And it's a metaphor as well, right? So then it becomes it. So there are some things that get marked as it. In the verb with the object and the subject, not really, but with the possessive marker. So you say cake. Well, maybe not a cake, because so many people's dogs they humanize their animals, right? Like my dog has a duh, right? And so, but you'd say, like if we looked out and there was like a deer, yaqu khan, a sha'aweh, its head. So would be its. Good questions.
Satnach jin, tleth alsiku, she nach jin, ye alsine.
Yeah, I think that would work. Yeah.
My left hand doesn't know what my right hand is doing.
Yeah.
Could we do one of these that says, those people love you?
Oh,
So,
like
so a plural subject.
Yeah, we're gonna get to the subject after.
Oh, okay.
Thematic. We're working our way from the left to the right, but yes, and then we're gonna do a whole string of them with every single. It's a conjugation party. It's what the slideshow is called. Juan Chain, wasa.
Tsuyeyanaka, Nusk person, Yak hech, on. Yeah. Is it because there's it in there? Or yeah, because on your third person the A's there, but on the first two slides you did there was no A. And I know this, but I can't pull it out of my katushxeedi.
So before this, we had things with only objects.
Okay, only objects. Okay, I got it now.
Subject, then the does not need to pop up.
Okay.
But if you had technically 0 plus 0, they're right next to each other, that triggers the other one to switch to an It's almost like they can't share the same space. It's like, oh, I'll go change into my costume so people can see me. Or else you wouldn't know. It would just say sechan. And now it doesn't make sense because it looks like there's nothing on there now. Like it.
I was sailing along the wave, like Shanaketh said, and I'm reading how Sanecha Hayotangi, and I'm looking at your tables, and all of a sudden it just all of a sudden just went, bleh, and you were putting in subjects and objects and all kinds of stuff, and
This is, even if we'll come back to, sometimes you'll come back to this the third time and you'll be like, and then your brain is looking for these specific things. It's like, okay, I'm getting these things, but what is that thing now? And so because there's a whole bunch of things going at the same time, that's why it's good to just keep going over it, I think. Okay, Johan. Sheesh.
someone said that in order to teach, maybe it was Wu, to teach children things, you have to go over it 400 times. You have to say it over and over and over before it becomes part of them. So, I'm on like 800 times and still.
Well, if you could find other people to explain this stuff to, I think that helps. Because if you were to watch classes I was teaching, and even now, it probably happens a lot, but I remember teaching stuff like 5 years ago, and I'd be explaining it, and in the middle of explaining it, I'm thinking, I don't think I know how this works because I'm just saying a lot of words. If it takes you a whole bunch of words to get there, then you might not fully understand it yet. But if you're explaining it to someone and to each other, I do think that helps, because then it's sort of like you'll find where some of those blank spots are. So in between the object and the subject, we're not going to deal with the conjugation stuff yet. This is where everything's going to happen. If you want to move that perfective, future, hortative, it's all going to happen. Most of it right here. There might be something that pops up here. Might be something that pops up in the suffix. We're not going to worry about that right now. The thematic has up to 3 spaces that can be filled. They don't have to be, but they can be. Space number 1, space number 2, space number 3. You could have 3 of these. And this isn't all of them. This is just the most common ones. So some of them is which is called aerial. It relates to some given space, and it seems to talk about the weather a lot. But it's not always weather, but it has something to do with a given area, a space. Ka, which is comparing two things. And you can tell whether it's this ka or one of these, because if it's this one, it requires the aerialis. So that's why you say ye, ku, ge, because you got ka, ge, because it's comparing two things. And you can have, like I was thinking, Shanakait, when you're talking about, when you're doing your poem, katushxeedi. It's to roll along in the swell. So you have ka. You can have ka, 2 kas in there. You can also have j, which is a hand or possession. Tu, which is inside of something, often thoughts. Sa or se, which is the voice or the base, it's the neck. Kl, which is the nose or a point of something. Da is around or about. I'll put about in there as well. Kha or eh is the mouth or the opening. Also but I think that one's slightly different. And we can look at some examples later. Sha is the head or the top of something, like a pencil, you know. Shu is the end of something. The is what we call athematic. And it just means it pops up on certain verbs. And usually what it does, like some of them like audagon, it's just on there. But I think it usually forces us to just think about the action. Because some of them you could say achatun, right? Or let's say achwatun. I was hunting. But if you put something specific in there, quwakan khwatun. Now that goes away. Okay. Then on the third spot, you have spherical or round, or the horizontal surface. And then you also have the vertical surface. Okay.
What does it look like when you have all three of them together?
So you could have something like, I'll have to find one. I'll go find
Okay.
one.
Well, how about even two?
Well, yaksa'an has two. So they start to run into each other. Or you can have, I'll show you one that has a bunch of them actually. And then we might run out of time.
And they don't have to be in that same order as what you're showing us. They could be.
There is a specific order that they go.
Okay.
So we're gonna go look up, if we just go through here. So here's one that has sha, ka, to saunter or walk around idly. So what you have here is shakanashkan, or you have yas shakanashkan. They are sauntering around. Let's go find another one. So here in the verb dictionary, you could tell because you're going to have the root and the classifier. And then if you get more than two things on here, now you're starting to stack them up. Let's see. So like this one, even though you see like ka, ya, sheet, that's only one because that's actually a zero classifier. But we're going to go look at shake because I think shake there's some in there that have a whole bunch. So here's sha, ka, zero, yuk. Head, surface. So the head is shaking on a surface is basically what you're doing. It's like when you think of how the Tlingit brain looks at these things, it's like you're taking the head of something and just shaking it along a horizontal surface, which is kind of how shaking works. So then you get shakayuk, a command form. Shakhwayuk, I shook it. Let's go find another one with more than one. Yakadinash, to shake your head this way. So this yuk is to shake something kind of rapidly, and this nash is for something to move back and forth, like a tail or a head or a finger, which we'll see. So here, Yakaudinash, they shook their head no. Shkahadeyach, yakandanash. That person is going along like a crazy person, looking this way and that, like they're really like looking around. And then here's this is the one I think that has the most. Shkakatlinash. So that one actually has 1, 2, 3 of them. So that's a verb I know of that has 3 of them. And it also has a reflexive pronoun. So ek would be finger, sha is the head or a fingertip in this case, ka is that surface, and then glinash. So they shook their finger at me like this.
I was mostly worried that some pronoun was going to mush its way in there, but that doesn't happen.
Well, yeah, so in the thematic, the object, so if you wanted to change this to say, I shook my finger at them, du yade shkek shakauch glinash.
Ah,
So you can have as many as you want, but the subject has to be at the end of them, and the
okay.
object has to be before them. So you can't just start smooshing other things in there.
Mhm.
The only thing they can have up to 3, but they all will be thematic prefixes, and they'll all be basically linked to nouns, some kind of noun.
And then that pronoun, the subject, is usually closer to the end of the verb.
The subject is always right next to the classifier.
Okay.
So object, thematic, conjugation, subject, classifier. But then sometimes they smoosh together and they start sort of running into each other. But it's just like that, and that make this kind of shape.
That's okay.
Little finger, no. Katushxeedi, Yek echa. So let's see. Monday, I would say just keep working on these drawing and storytelling things. So if you didn't have a chance to go, you'll have a chance to go on Monday, and we'll just talk a little bit, share, and then we'll either kick back into this and keep working through. So basically, I showed you some thematic prefixes. Then we'll just look at some verbs and say, here's how a thematic prefixes changes that. You can go from, and then the classifier and thematic prefix can sometimes interact. So you've got wune for something to happen, ausane for somebody to do something or fix it, and then you could have yejene. Yeah, well, they all have ye in front of it. So then jene would be somebody to work. And so some of them, they're real clear how they sort of work. You can add a noun to a verb, and it just alters its meaning a little bit. Not shaking your head, so a dog can shake its tail with nash, and a person can shake their head with shakat nash, and then a person could shake their finger. Okay, gonna teach you han. Konachuke is katniki, konachuke, uke ye jene, gonna teach.
Katushxeedi.
Gonna cheese. Good class.
See ya.
Liagen.
Sheesh.
Finish cheese.